So welcome to the August 3rd, 2022 meeting of the Revere Conservation Commission. For those that would like to, let's stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to do roll call. So Robert Cassidy.
Present.
Heather Legier.
Here.
Ann Raponi.
Here.
John Shoes present. Joe LaValle.
Here.
Brian Averbeck.
Here.
Nicholas Rudolph. He's absent. All right. Next on the agenda is review and approval of the meeting minutes from July 6th. Are there any changes, corrections, updates to the minutes? Hearing none, kind of a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
I'll
Aye.
second.
Aye.
All right, minutes are approved. So I'm going to change the agenda around a little bit. We're going to take item number 2 and move it to item number 4, and we're going to do items 3 and 4 first, so that way we'll have a little bit more time. So the first one up, doing it that way, is 646 Ocean Ave, DEP file number 061-0730. We had a request from them, the representatives and the owners of the Conservation Commission, to affirm that the proposed relocation of a transformer by National Grid doesn't have a significant impact, requiring amending the OOC or filing a new notice of intent. So that's what's up for the commission. Someone wants to kind of just high level go over what's going on in the request for the confirmation. So turn the mic on and state your name and address, because we
Yes.
are on TV.
My name is David Walker. I'm the Vice President of Construction for Hines. We're the developer and owner of the apartment construction project at 646 Ocean Ave. My address, outside of the,
Well,
of the project
I think
address.
that's fine, yeah.
When we entered the project and had the order of conditions applied for, the development of the infrastructure had not been recognized on the site plan. As we moved through our design development, the utility described where the transformers should be located, and we agreed that that would be our basis of design. We had met with the city officials in the Revere Beach Design Review Board to show how the plan progression had recognized the advancement of the design development. The plans then went forward to the building department for building permit review, and we have a full building permit that we've been advancing upon for the past 3 or 4 months. The exterior mounted transformers are at the southeast edge of the property, near the building, and National Grid has asked that we get it recognized by the Conservation Commission that the building permit plan is consistent with the existing order of conditions. All of the elements within the order of conditions are being adhered to. It's been a focus of our project. We've met on site. We've reviewed the conditions and walked the site with the commissioner. And we'd appreciate your consideration to allowing this to go forward, with the commission recognizing that the building permit plan is consistent with the original plan with the order of conditions.
All right. Any questions from any of the commissioners? Heather?
So the transformer location was determined by the utility,
Yes,
correct? And
that's
that's the reason why you held off on putting that on the plans?
Well, once it was identified, it was located on the plans. The original plan didn't show an exterior transformer. It had not been identified. When we met with the utility company, they said that an exterior transformer would be required, and the location that that we agreed to was at this, quite similar to where if it entered the building and transformers were inside, it's in very much the same location on the site. It's just an exterior mounted transformer that they require for access, if there's any replacement necessary, that they have ease of access to maintain power.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other commissioners? You have any questions? No? So, I mean, the plans had a transformer, it was just located inside the building. Now it's kind of in the same place, but exterior.
Yes.
So the question for the commissioners is this significant enough to require amending the order of conditions or filing a new NOI? I don't think it is.
I don't think so.
So kind of based on that, if I can get a motion saying we don't believe it's significant enough?
I don't think so either.
Okay, good. We'll just-
All right, I'll make a motion to that effect, that it's not significant enough to warrant a redoing of the notice of intent.
All right. All right, all in favor? I need a second.
Aye.
All right, and then all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. You want an email?
An email would be exactly what we need to satisfy National Grid.
Okay.
And very much appreciate your support and your focus and help with the project.
Okay, good. All right, thanks.
Thank you very much.
I'll get that out tomorrow.
Terrific. Thank you.
All right, next up is 565 Squire Road. DEP file number 061-0745. This is the Amazon warehouse. And it's the same thing that's come before the commission. It's a request for confirmation from the commission that a proposed change from National Grid to reroute a proposed underground electrical service and changing it to overhead is not significant and does not require an amendment to the existing order of conditions or a new NOI.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question? Is there someone here representing?
Yep. So if you want to state your name and
Matthew Costa, work with Beals Associates, the civil engineer for the project. And we were involved in the entitlement process back when the order was issued in 2020.
did I capture it correctly?
That's exactly right. I can just show you quickly just on a plan here. Overall building here. This is the Amazon on Squire Road, so there's a canopy parking above it. Squire Road down the bottom of the plan here, Route 1.
Can I stop you for 1 minute? Can you point it towards that camera over there?
You got it.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah, there it is. All right, so building here, canopy parking extends here, vans load up underneath below here. Squire Road down towards the bottom of the plan. Route 1 runs along this right side of the plan behind these insets here. Colored in green is the wetland resource area along Squire and Route 1. And then there's the river that runs along here, the big marsh in the back that eventually runs underneath Route 1 is towards the back of the plan here. Just zoomed in a little bit, blue is the water lines, pink is electric, the red is the 100-foot buffer. Previously, we came out of the building straight underground to an electric manhole, and then we were previously proposing to connect to a telephone pole or electric pole right along Squire Road. After National Grid had done their thing, they advised us that they would like an overhead line, so I've highlighted that here in yellow, for overhead electric poles, and then connection to a different utility pole along Squire Road, so it's well outside of that 100-foot buffer of the resource area.
Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, did they ever tell you what the rationale was for that change?
I think there was a lot of back and forth with the electrical load. This facility has EV parking stations for all the Amazon vans, so I think that plus some of the solar components that were going back and forth derived us to make that change. But I hadn't spoken to them directly on it. It was kind of passed down through the contractor, and it's a long process with National Grid, so the project is almost done, the building is up, and we're kind of just working out the details now.
Now, is this something National Grid is going to put in, or do you pay for is it your fiscal responsibility to move the lines?
I believe it's a fiscal responsibility for us to install the poles, and I think National Grid is responsible for running their lines and leaning up the poles. But permitting wise, and I think the cost of the work, I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it's on the responsibility of Amazon and the developer.
And it looks like, as you pointed it out, you're actually going to have to go a longer distance than underground, is that?
That's correct.
By how much approximately?
I'd say maybe 50 feet. It's not too much. Instead of a straight line, we take a left-hand turn and then back towards the road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just a quick question for you. You said that the building is up. About how long until the entire project is completed?
Spitballing here, I'd say maybe within the next year.
Is there more buildings as well, or is that the main
No,
building?
that's the main building. Right now, they are going to be paving, I believe, the next couple weeks. Landscaping trees are starting to go in, so interior components are in. So it's getting very close.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from the commissioners? All right. So, same thing as last time, can I get a motion that this is not significant enough to warrant an amended order of conditions or a new NOI?
I'll make a motion on that.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Email okay?
Email would be great.
All right,
Thank you very much.
good, thanks. All right, next up is 101 Libra Bank Highway. DEP file number 061-0784. This is a continuation of a public hearing from last month, where the new owners are demolishing the tank farms and constructing a warehouse.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Roller with Saracen Properties. Wanted to thank you for your time tonight and for the site visit a few weeks ago. We're here on the continuation hearing, and I will hand it off to our environmental engineer and LSP, Kevin Trainer.
Thanks, Chris. I'm Kevin Trainer with Verdantis. I'm a licensed site professional. My business address is at 4 Marketplace Drive in York, Maine. And we have been retained by the new owner of the property to conduct response actions for spills at the property under the MCP, the Massachusetts Contingency Plan. And so just for reference, it's a former bulk petroleum facility. The development is separated into 2 phases. There's phase 1, which is the northern part of the bulk tank farm, is what we're talking about tonight. The southern part of the tank farm is called phase 2, and that part of the tank farm is still operational, and development will occur at some point in the future. So tonight we're here to talk about the phase 1 part, and we've submitted a notice of intent for work in the wetlands buffer zone, which is shown in green on the top property, the top part of that map. The work will be decommissioning and demolishing the above-ground storage tanks, and then construction of the new building and facility. Much of this work will be done outside of the buffer zone, and there are not going to be direct impacts to the wetland resource area itself. The tanks and the piping in the northern part in phase 1 have already been cleaned and certified. There's no product remaining in the tanks and the piping. They're in what's called a gas-free state. Global is still operating on the southern part of the property, as I mentioned. And for work that's done on that phase 2 part, on the southern side, when that development is slated to occur, we will be coming back to the Conservation Commission with a separate notice of intent. So this is not the last time that you'll see us. We'll be back. So one thing, just as I think it's self-evident, but there's a tremendous environmental benefit that the tanks are no longer storing product and transferring product in that phase 1 area. And so the possibility of future spills from those tanks and pipes has been eliminated. So again, we've been retained by the new owner to conduct response actions, that's assessment and cleanup activities for spills at the property. During the demolition and the construction phases, we will have a presence on site, and we will respond if there's contamination encountered, and we'll conduct the investigations and cleanup that's required under the Massachusetts contingency plan. One thing that the new owners have impressed upon me is that they want to be good stewards of the property, that they want to take the necessary response actions to conduct these cleanup activities appropriately. And if there are unexpected issues that come up, then those are going to be addressed. So just a couple things. One is I had previously sent via email a figure with historic releases that have occurred at the property. The property has been operating as a bulk storage facility for some years. Does anyone need a copy of that figure? I have some extra copies here. You do? Okay. Let me just pull some out. I also realized I have a housekeeping issue that I've forgotten to address, which is the certified mail receipts associated with the NOI filing. And we have one that was returned, was unable to be delivered. So I will transfer those. Thank you.
I've got it up here. Do you have a big one?
I do not have a large copy of the map.
Okay.
I can put it up on the, I can flip it up here though. Whoa.
Find it? So I'm going to go to my computer screen.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Maybe.
So we put this figure together to provide some context on the historic releases that occurred at the property. So again, this is it was an operating bulk storage facility for petroleum. There have been numerous documented releases. There's over 60 releases that have occurred at the tank farm. And these, we put the approximate locations on the figure to provide some context.
A second.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen inside? Share my screen.
Second ago. Yeah, there you go.
That's a zoom in on that.
That's
I
that
think.
one still. So maybe this doesn't work? Okay, all right. I mean, this is the only one we found here. All right. We'll use yours.
Okay.
Go on.
Yeah, I think I recognize it's a small format. I think it will be suitable for what we need to talk about, just in terms of general, because I wasn't planning to get into the specifics on some of these releases. There's been a lot of them. So I think just in general, just wanted to point out, there are a number of releases, over 60, that have occurred at the property. Those are shown on the figure in these shaded areas. The ones that are in green are the ones that have been closed under the Massachusetts contingency plan. The ones that are in blue are still open. So there are still 5 open releases that are, I should say, we are now currently conducting response actions for. And when I say we, the responsibility for conducting those response actions has transferred from Global, the previous owner, to the new property owner. So the new property owner is taking ownership of those spills and has retained us to conduct those response actions. One of the things that's difficult to see on this figure, even if it's up close, is there have been a lot of investigations that have been conducted in response to the historic releases. They're shown on the figure as little colored circles for soil samples that are in orange, groundwater samples that are in blue, and soil and groundwater samples that are in purple. And I think, without getting into the details, there's been a lot of samples collected from the site historically to characterize these releases. And again, most of these releases have achieved what's called a permanent solution, which means that there's identified a condition of no significant risk, which is a defined term in the Massachusetts contingency plan. Not that there's no contamination left, but that the risks associated with the contamination that's remaining do not present a significant risk. And so some of these areas, in order to achieve that, have deed restrictions, that is, activity and use limitations, to prevent potential access to the contamination that's known to be present in the soil. And those deed restrictions go with the property, and they limit what can be done on the property in terms of development and also accessing the soil. And so the development that's proposed is entirely consistent with that, which is this is a low access development. It's associated with warehouse buildings, and so the impacted soil that's known to be present is not going to be contacted by the operations at the property. These areas where there is contamination known to be remaining has been demonstrated to be stable, that there's contamination present, but it's not migrating, it's not moving, it's in place. As long as it's not being contacted, it doesn't present a risk. We are ongoing conducting response actions for the open releases. One thing to note is that several of these are located right immediately around some of the current tanks, which we are going to be investigating in and around and under those tanks to identify if there's contamination present. One of the reasons that those releases are still open is that the potential for contamination under the tanks couldn't be addressed while the tanks were still in service. So now that the tanks are coming down, we have the opportunity to go in and investigate those areas appropriately. And we know that we're going to be conducting cleanup actions in at least one of those areas, which is in the phase 2 area down at what's called tank 5. So that won't be addressed tonight, but we know that that area is an area that we're targeting for cleanup. So I think, just for summary, there have been a lot of releases identified at the property. There has been a lot of soil and groundwater characterization conducted in response to those. Most of those releases have achieved a permanent solution, and that there's a condition of no significant risk associated with them. The remaining contamination is stable. It remains in some areas. It's not expected to migrate. And If there is some situation that's encountered where there's contamination identified in an area where it wasn't identified previously, then we will respond and conduct the necessary response actions under the MCP.
Okay. I'm going to open it up to questions right now from some of the commissioners. Commissioner Valley?
Thank you. Yeah, I noticed that some of the tanks, such as Tank 21, Tank 23, and Tank 18 on the southern side don't have any, in the legend, I don't see any soil samples or groundwater samples on those particular tanks.
Yeah, some of
And
them.
it's not consistent on all the tanks. Some have a lot of locations, and as I pointed out, some of them have none. And I was wondering what's going on, and why aren't those other tanks being tested or have been tested around?
Yeah, so some of those areas around the existing tanks have not been tested. And so part of this is when the demolition occurs, we will have a presence on site to evaluate if there's contamination around there. So there hasn't been testing done at each of the tank locations.
And that's why, I mean, because you're taking down all these tanks, correct?
Yes.
And yet some of them have had samples done and some of them have not. Why wouldn't you just test the sites around all the tanks?
Sure. Well, I can say, so the testing that was done is conducted in response to releases that were identified. And so when there were releases identified at these tanks, and in some cases outside of the tanks, Global, the previous owner, conducted these investigations. In areas where there were no releases identified, they did not collect samples associated with that.
Are there any other?
Do you have a plan that has an overlay of the proximity to the wetland area? I know that the wetland pretty much adjoins pretty much the whole rear and the side, but I'm not sure how far it technically or historically has gone into the tank farm. So I'm wondering that, and also to Joe's point, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of monitoring wells in areas adjoining the wetland, and I'd like to kind of understand if there's been any contamination headed that way towards the wetlands.
Yeah. On the first issue, so I'm just going to pull up the plan I have forward. So this plan, should I rotate it?
No, you can leave it right there. He'll blow it up on the screen.
So this plan shows the buffer zones associated with the wetland in the phase 1 area in green. So I should say most of the tanks and the areas of the releases are not located in the buffer zones. Most of the releases are outside of those areas. And so on the second question in terms of the testing, so I'd say there has been a lot of testing completed, but it has not been conducted under each of the tanks. And again, that's testing was done by the previous owner in response to releases as they occur. And so that's how the testing program has evolved over time. Again, for future work, for when the tanks come down, we're going to have a presence on site. And so if there is indications of a release associated with these tanks, we will be testing as required by the Massachusetts contingency plan.
I believe this was brought up during our walkthrough. Did you figure out whether or not those tanks were sitting on concrete pads or what they were sitting on?
I didn't go back to check those specifically. I know at least some of them have a concrete foundation associated with them. And I speak specifically of Tank 5, which is in the Phase 2 area. I know that has a concrete ring foundation around it because there's been contamination detected inside that ring, inside underneath the footprint of the tank, but not outside. And it's been speculated that that ring has prevented the contamination from moving outside from the footprint of the tank. So I have not gone back and checked on the construction of all those tanks. I'm aware of one that certainly has a concrete ring foundation. Some of them do? Yeah. Okay. So some of them do.
One more question. The blue area in between tank 21 and 23, can you explain the circumstance of that? Because I noticed it seemed like a pool area. So I'm just curious what that is.
The blue area between tank 21 and tank 23.
Yeah, blue lines.
Oh, yeah, so that's part of the stormwater system. It's a pond where stormwater that's collected in the bermed areas of the tanks is then ultimately pumped to before discharge up to the north towards Sales Creek. And so that's, I'd say it's like a holding basin, like a settling basin for sediment to settle down.
So does that just delineate that it's a pond, it's not contaminated?
That area has been tested. There's nothing, I should say, there's no open contamination associated with that.
Okay.
I know that there's been testing done in that area as indicated on the plan.
The reason why I asked is because you were using blue to show the areas of contamination.
Yeah. I apologize. Yes, that's actually a pond.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks.
Any other questions? Do any of the commissioners have questions on the stormwater management plan and how they're intending to meet the performance standards there?
I was wondering if that was coming up, like if that was part 2.
Do you want him to go over the
Yeah.
stormwater management plan and?
That would be great.
Sure. I'll turn it off. I'll turn this over to our engineer.
Okay.
So hopefully you guys can see this. Nick Scully at VHB 101 Walnut Street in Watertown, Mass. So all of the stormwater on site is going to be collected in deep sump and hooded catch basins. We then have some large subsurface systems that are shown in this dashed line. Sort of throughout the parking and the drive aisles. So that is to make up for, so the existing site has all of those dikes that contain and hold stormwater, and then it's pumped out of a oil water separator. So we're collecting all of the runoff through the deep sump catch basins. It's going to go through a water quality unit before it goes into that detention structure. It will then be slowly pumped out to match the existing rate of that existing pump, and then it'll go through a media filter before discharging into the wetland.
So a storm scepter type system?
So it'll be a storm scepter type system for the water quality unit prior to going in, and then it'll be a media filter for nutrients, phosphorus, nitrogen, that sort of. They have. We haven't quite picked the unit, but it's those cartridges that have the media filtration where the water circulates through the cartridges to remove all the extra nutrients. Not the TSS, because that's already been removed from the storm scepter type filter.
Okay.
So we're matching the peak rates and then providing a large increase in water quality to all of the stormwater that goes into the wetland, because there is no media filter today. It's just that single oil water separator.
So what you'll be putting in is a lot better than what's currently in place?
Correct.
And during construction, are you going to be putting up, or demo, I should say, are you going to be putting up the hay bales to protect?
Yeah, so there'll be erosion control around the site. A portion of that will actually be bermed to keep keep the water inside, and then we're going to have some temporary settling basins, and then pumping the water out of that to keep the sediment inside the site, and then pump out the water that's clean into that existing outfall. The site is over an acre, so it will be. We do have a construction general permit as part of that NIPDES, and we will be applying, if we haven't already, for the RGP, which Kevin discussed earlier, the remediation general permit as well.
Any other questions on stormwater management?
I think that's it for me.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to add?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Unless you have something.
Just state your name.
Hey guys, Dan Connaughton, Lake Logistics. We are the current owner of the site, Vice President Development for the East Region. Address 131 Dartmouth Street, 3rd floor, Boston, Mass. Just wanted to add real quick, thank you all very much for your time. And I just wanted to point out that this type of project is up the fairway for us, believe it or not. This is really what we do. We earned 2022 Energy Star Partner of the Year Award from the DEP, US DEP, US EPA this past year. Only company in the industrial real estate sector to have achieved that award. Trident Logistics Center is going to be a LEED V4 certified facility, consistent with all our development projects that we do across the country, with the goal of, further reducing carbon emissions and improving environmental resiliency. And then lastly, this type of project is really what we do at Link. We try to unlock these more environmentally challenged sites, redevelop them, repurpose them, clean them up, and turn them into state-of-the-art logistics facilities that will, bolster local and regional economies. So I just want you guys to know that you are in good hands with us, and, we're going to be an owner of this facility for a very long time to come. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank this gentleman for getting on the microphone, explaining in detail and summarizing exactly what it's all about. we appreciate your attendance here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So just for the record, I want to note there are no other people in the audience to ask questions or speak for or against the project, other than Commissioner LaValle has a question.
No, I don't have a question. I'd just like to make a comment on this. And I would like to just say the same thing I said at the site inspection. I have reservations about this project for a couple of reasons. I think there were sites that in this area that hadn't been tested yet, and some of them are because you haven't taken the tanks down. So that will be going on as the project goes. And I made the comment that it seems like we're giving a blank check to you people to do the work in the possibility that there might be some issues coming down the road. I will take away my reservations as long as we have conditions in the order conditions that the Conservation Commission, along with other agencies that I'm sure you have to answer to, the Conservation Commission gets notified of any kind of problems that you have with soil, leakage, any kind of an issue that might be germane to the commission and to the wetlands. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions from the
I
commissioners?
guess I have one more question, comment. Do you have a website where you track the construction, like what your plans are, your timeline is for the planning and the final construction, or some place where, is there contact information that if there is any constituents that have any questions about it can get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. We do that on every single project that we're involved with. Saracen, we're the developer of the site. So we'll be keeping you in the loop as the construction progresses. And, you know, this project is going through the MIPA certification. So we're halfway through our ENF right now, and then we'll file our EIR. So there is a public comment period and that sort of thing that's ongoing. But certainly, you know, when the project starts in earnest, we'll keep you in the loop. And to your point, if there's anything that happens throughout demolition or during construction, we'll certainly keep you apprised of what's going on the site.
Yeah, I mean, there would be a requirement to provide some type of periodic reporting.
Yeah, site visits, reporting.
Yeah. Okay.
I know that kind of transparency is really appreciated in this community. Thanks.
So if we want, we can go ahead and close the public hearing, and then we can discuss among ourselves some.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Can I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so the hearing's closed. Now, I sent to everyone via email this last week our typical order of conditions. I've heard one additional condition from Commissioner LaValle about the commission being notified in parallel if anything's discovered. And there has to be other agencies involved. I think that's a pretty easy one to add and to comply with. Is there anything else you guys would like to see added to the conditions?
As you say, it would be easy to add Mr. Lavalle's condition. Well, I agree to go along with this, adding Mr. Lavalle's additional condition.
Other things I saw possibly to add, and again, would be discussed and approved here, would be, and I think it's kind of obvious, it'd have to be done anyway, but making sure the existing open RTNs are closed before you do any backfilling. They have to be, right?
As long as there's no.
In phase one.
Yeah, I think that's our plan, is to
Yeah,
have those
yeah.
addressed, so,
So that should be.
yeah.
And then walking the site, we saw a lot of extra spoil and rubbles being stored. And we probably want to make sure that, and it didn't look like it was protected from moving over into the wetlands, and because it's in the buffer zone. We want to make sure that gets addressed also, which I think you guys would be doing. So. Other than that, I didn't see any other additional conditions. Anyone have anything?
No, Mr. Chairman, but as you mentioned that, I'm starting to reflect the fact that we did see areas where there was water, and let's point out that we've been in a drought. So it was kind of unusual to see a little bit of ponding, and I don't know if that, and I believe I asked you people if you thought it might be tidal or just coming up from underneath the soil, or considering how dry it's been, I expected to see that place bone dry.
Yeah, and so I can't answer specifically, but I can tell you that the depth to groundwater at this location is very shallow currently, within a foot or two of the grade. And so it's possible that there could be some expression of groundwater. It's possible that it could also just be some of the, stormwater rainfall that hadn't evaporated as of yet. So, but I can tell you that certainly the groundwater table is very shallow at this site. And so there could be some expression of that in those areas.
So I saw that also, Joe, and I attribute it to rainwater. It's a clay surface that's pretty impervious. It's hard clay, and it had just rained a couple of days before. It was a pretty good rainfall. All right. So, any other discussion or debate among us? Then I will entertain a motion to approve the NOI and issue an order of conditions with our normal conditions and these three that we discussed.
I'll first.
Have a second?
I second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right, everyone's in favor, so it's approved. Okay, it'll take me a couple of days to get into EDEP and get it issued, but it'll happen fairly quickly.
Excellent. Thank you for your time, and we want to work with you, so I appreciate your willingness to work with us. So thank you.
No, just for the record, we think it's a great project. We're glad to see the tanks go.
And we all love tank farms.
You
I
know,
mean,
we're
all
just-
of us.
We're appreciative for the immediate impact in the future and hopefully, the long-term impact of the project and the benefit to the environment, so.
Absolutely.
But
Thank you.
remember those hawks that were hanging out.
And the
at
coyote.
Yeah. We want to take care of our marshes and wetlands, so.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Thank you.
all right, great, thank you, folks. So moving through the agenda. We did. Yeah, right at the beginning, right after the roll call, sorry. We can do it again. I'll come back to open discussion. There was no correspondence. The site visit was the site visit to 101 Lee Burbank. Well, we did have correspondence. The Alden Firehouse, the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection has intervened. And they're going to be working with the city and the consultant on a.
So is this going to add up to another delay?
It is.
Unbelievable.
The issue is, they believe the soil is that of a dune, and the building needs to be on piles. So,
You've got to be kidding me.
No, it's crazy. This is going to be a sticking point,
so
you know.
DEP will be scheduling a site visit. It would be helpful when that's scheduled. I'll let you guys know if we can come out.
They let every condo, every building, they DP fine with that, but a fire station,
The
Now all of a
apartments,
sudden-
the apartments that are right next to the water are going up.
yeah, I don't know.
But they're on pilings. They're on
Well,
pilings.
there's been a fire station there for years and years and years.
I know. So I think I forwarded that correspondence. Enforcement action updates. Nick owes us a closeout letter for 80 Union Street. I'll remind him on that. 630 Revere Beach Boulevard. I did visit that yesterday. I took some pictures. I'll be putting together a recommendation for the commission to vote on at the next meeting to close out that enforcement order. If you go look at it, all the vegetation's back, there's all sorts of stuff there. And then 8 and 10 Marshview, we'll talk more about that at the next meeting. I'll put recommendations together for that. I did visit there yesterday. There's still some ongoing issues with the site, and we'll be amending that enforcement order at the next meeting, giving them more direction. Is there anything else the commissioners would like to bring up?
Mr. Chairman, just the other day, for one of our locations, I happened to be down the Point of Pines, and the wind shifted, and there was a whole cloud of dust coming from the former GJ site. And the irony is that I saw many times a water truck there. So all of a sudden, the water truck isn't there, and the wind was blowing east, and then it changed to southwest, and you could see a cloud coming right over the General Edwards Bridge and right towards the Pines and
All right.
Pines River.
I'll email the engineer, tell him about that, and then, I don't know if you guys are monitoring that whole situation, but they've driven out all the rats, and there's a little bit of a rat issue in the Point of Pines neighborhood, which is being attributed to the construction.
And the pilings are still there. They haven't cut them down yet either. I keep looking at that.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll send them a reminder about maintaining dust control. Any other? All right. So a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All approved?
Third.
We're adjourned. We're adjourned.